And this hour, of course, I'm joined in studio by Gun God himself,
Gun God.
Todd Eccles. Well, I used to work with a guy named, well, his real name was Mike Source, but he went by the on air name of Don Geronimo. And he was, for a long time, the host of a syndicated show called The Don and Mike Show. And their slogan had been when they were on the air, they were called the Radio Gods. And it was funny because he'd take a call from somebody who remembered listening to him in syndication, and the caller would say, "Oh, you're a radio god," and of course he'd play along. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, it was long past that particular show that he had done, and he was just trying to lead a normal life at that stage of the game. But we're not trying to imply, by the way, anything almighty about Todd, but he does know a lot of stuff when it comes to training.
Yeah, I hope so. I teach quite a few classes. I mean, I can get you the basics. You come, you get fired up. You want to take a class, you get a hold of me. You can get a hold of me at via via calling me or texting me at area code 620-794-6223. One of my main classes is the Idaho Enhanced Concealed Carry Permit class. Come there and we'll teach you all about the law. We'll teach you about defensive mindset, gun safety, gun handling skills, and then we'll take you out and you have to fire about 98 rounds. And we'll do that. Do it safely. We'll have a good time. Um, Classes are always a lot of fun, especially if you take them in groups. Bring. I've had actually family reunions where one day the family reunion, three-quarters of the family shows up and then to take a class, and it's a lot of fun, a lot of good competition. The state requires that you fire 98 rounds. I always tell everyone to bring 100, and then with the last two rounds at the very end of the when we get done shooting, we have a bullseye competition, and the winner gets bragging rights, and they put their picture on Facebook on my Facebook page, and they win a hat or a window sticker or something, and it doesn't seem like much, but it's a lot of fun. And they watch everyone shoot the entire class, and everyone's kind of okay. He's gonna win. I know he's gonna win. Oh no, they're gonna win over there. More often than not, it's the person that has never shot before, has very little experience shooting, that wins. It's fantastic. We had a gal come take it. She was originally from, I think, Maryland. Hated guns. Lived in Idaho for quite a while. Married an Idaho boy. Decided one day it was time for her to go learn how to fire a gun. She showed up to class. She won the competition, and there was about 25 people in that class. And I accredit it to me, but I also say it's because she didn't have any bad habits.
You talk about bad habits. You posted a video not long ago of a guy who was a training instructor and the do's and don'ts. And even some instructors do. And I thought about that because within a couple of days after your posting of that, there was a guy over in eastern Idaho who ended up shooting himself during a training exercise, and it was not a life-threatening injury as far as that goes. But I thought there are people out there when they're giving instruction, they may not be clear enough, or the way they're going about it is probably not the best.
Right. You need to be clear. You need to be precise. And I don't personally me. I don't know a lot of. I mean, there's some other instructors around here, so I'm not speaking for them because I don't personally know them. But some instructors and those ones that are this way end up showing up on YouTube or showing up on Facebook. But some of them can be a little arrogant, and you got to check that at the door if you're an instructor. If you're arrogant and then safety kind of goes out the window, you're not paying attention to what you're doing. This gentleman in this video that I posted, he was I think he was a little bit arrogant. He was waving around that I think it was
I
a
saw
40
that.
44 mag. He was talking a lot. He was demonstrating with a gun that was loaded. You don't demonstrate with a gun that is loaded. You get it safety check so it's unloaded, or you use a blue gun, which is pretty much a non-fireable gun. Doesn't even slide. It's like a plastic gun. Use something like that, and then you can live fire with an actual weapon. So he did a couple of things wrong there. He had his finger on the trigger. He was demonstrating with a loaded gun. He pulled the hammer back, so he essentially cocked the gun when he was still demonstrating with it, and then put his finger on the trigger when he shouldn't have, and it went off, surprised him and everyone else around him. So you just got to be careful with what you're doing. Be safe. Think about what you're doing.
He waving it around like some sort of like he was three sheets to the wind. That was
Yeah.
what worried me.
That too. And you're supposed to treat every gun like it's loaded. And so he's waving it around. The one guy was, it's hard to explain. The one guy was kind of standing in front of him. We don't know who was behind the camera, and he's waving this gun around. That's not a good thing. Treat every firearm like it's loaded. Keep it pointed in a safe
And
direction.
he had a room filled with people too.
Yeah, oh no, that's the deal. When I demonstrate like how to grip a gun or something like that, I go out away from people and make sure there's no one downrange. I've actually got a little BB gun that is innate, doesn't fire or anything like that, and I will still hand it to someone and have them verify that that gun is a BB gun. There's no BBs in it. It won't fire. I mean, I pick someone from the crowd, say, hey, check this. Even one or two people check this, show me, determine, tell me that it's a safe gun to use. If I'm using an actual firearm, I take the magazine out. It's not loaded. I show everyone how to do a visual safety inspection, and then I have someone come and do a visual safety inspection on that handgun before I demonstrate with it. And I obviously don't point it at people. I step away. I point it down range in a direction that I know is secure, even though I know that gun is unloaded, and demonstrate away from everybody. You have to safety, safety, safety. People talk about accidental discharges. There is no accidental discharge, really. There's what they call negligent discharges. Accidental discharge is pretty much when the firearm malfunctions, which typically is not going to happen anymore. Okay, with the older firearms, you drop them, and whatnot, they could go off. The newer ones, they've got all kinds of internal safety, trigger blocks, all kinds of stuff. So a gun's not going to go off unless you're being negligent. And if you're waving it around at someone, that's one of the rules you're breaking. That's negligent. Put your finger on the trigger. That's negligent. If the gun is loaded and goes off because you depress the trigger, that is negligent.
No, we've talked about this before. This is really, I guess, an issue where what people are most comfortable with. I like a safety because it makes me feel better.
Sure.
But as you pointed out, you're very proficient, much more so than I am. We'll put it that way. Uh, you think a safety can slow you down, but for somebody like me who doesn't do it anywhere near as often, being aware of that safety and making sure that that safety is on is a good idea sometimes.
Well, yeah, and it's not that I'm afraid of safety is going to slow me. Well, I guess maybe I am a little bit. It's one more thing I have to worry about. If I have a decent firearm, a good firearm, and all firearms have some kind of safety, whether it be a manual one, a mechanical one that you got to take off with your finger, that's fine. If you like that, then learn how to draw that firearm and switch that safety off at the same time. Should be one smooth motion, and you're ready to fire that gun. The safeties I like are grip safety. So if you're holding the firearm or the handgun properly, then that safety is not engaged, and the gun is ready to fire. Or you have the trigger safety. So you have to have your full finger on the trigger and a nice solid trigger press over that complete trigger to get that gun to fire. You can't just, it's really hard to grip the edge of it and pull it back. It won't allow it. Those are the kind of safeties I like. Now, I was listening to another show and just another podcast a while back, and they were talking about people who carry a firearm, but they don't carry with a round chambered. I always encourage everyone carry with a round chambered. That's seconds lost. Okay, I personally want to be able to draw that firearm with. I'm right-handed. I want to be able to draw that firearm one-handed and use it if I have to, and not even have to worry about my left hand. If my left hand is free, it'll get in the game, and I can shoot using two hands. That's fine. But what if I'm carrying when my last son was born and I'm in Walmart? What if I'm carrying the baby carrier? Do I want to have to use my firearm and set the baby carrier down, bring my left hand up, draw that firearm, and then totally rack a slide to get it into the game? Or would I rather keep the baby carrier in my arm, draw my firearm, and have it ready to go without having to worry about racking the slide? Just pull the trigger, bang, bang, bang. That's what I want to do. What if my left hand or my weak hand gets injured, gets shot, I'm pinned down, that kind of thing? I tell everyone, carry with a round chambered. It's how you carry a gun. It's how a gun is meant to be carried. If you feel unsafe doing that, look at your equipment. Look at your holster. Make sure you have a decent holster. It might be your equipment, but typically, and this might ruffle a few feathers, it is a training issue. That's all it is. It's a people issue. You need better training. You need to train more so you're more comfortable. You need to practice more so you're more comfortable with that firearm, because that firearm's not going to go off unless you accidentally pull the trigger. And if you are worried about it going off in your holster, it's because you have a poor holster or you don't have good trigger finger discipline.
When we talked about this, I think in the past, we brought up the fact that the more you do, train.
Uh huh.
I mean, practice, they used to say, makes perfect. We're pretty close to it if you do a lot of it.
Mm
But that's the point. The more you do of it, the more comfortable you become.
hmm. Mm hmm.
Then it's easier. Some of those things you said that you do, but see, you have thousands of hours, probably to put it mildly, doing this.
Right.
And that's the thing is people have to realize that training is one thing you do, but then you can't stop it. You've got to keep doing it.
Right. You've got to develop that muscle memory and keep it up. Now, some people will go take a concealed carry class and then they'll never go and they'll shoot again. You have to shoot at this in this permit class. They have to shoot 98 rounds. I'm really afraid that a lot there's I would venture to say a quarter, if not half of them, if not more than that, they will never fire their handgun again. They have it there. They're depending on that thing to protect themselves and their loved ones, but they will never pick it up and fire it again until they actually need to. You've got to develop the muscle memory. I tell everyone, if you don't have a lot of money, I understand it. Ammo's not necessarily cheap. If you can't do 50 rounds, if you can't shoot 100 rounds, shoot 10 rounds, 20 rounds, 5 rounds every month. Do something because it is a degradable skill. It'll go away. It'll degrade over time if you don't use it. It's not like riding a bike.
I saw, how Forrest does this,
Mhm.
and how quickly he can do it in such a smooth manner,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of us would probably be, even if we're learning to do it,
Right.
and we're not faced with a threat while you're training, you're nervous still, and yet the more you do it, you take that nervousness away, and there's a smoothness to how he does it
Mhm.
that struck me right away as being this is what you need to do. So when you do get to that point, you know exactly where the holster is. You know exactly how you have to pull it out of the holster. You know exactly how you have to aim it. All of these things are going to have to take place in a matter of a second or two, and that's why you have to have that repetition beforehand.
Yes, you need to think on it. You need to practice it. And a lot of this, I mean, I encourage everyone to go out and actually shoot their gun every month. A lot of this you can do at home, in your garage, in your basement. You can do it without a loaded firearm. You can practice drawing. Make sure there's no ammo in the room. You don't want any accidents. Make sure there's no ammo in the magazines. But you can practice changing your magazines out. You can practice and aim and obviously point the firearm in a safe direction. But you can practice drawing that firearm and getting it out into a shooting stance and pulling the trigger and becoming smooth at it. And people like Forrest, people like me, people that do this all the time, and even the competitors, they will do this over and over and over and over again. I heard, and they will think about. We kind of touched on last week. They will think about situations where they might have to use their firearm. I'm in my car. What am I going to do if someone opens the door and gets in my back seat? What if I'm going to do if someone kicks open my front door and I'm in bed? What am I going to do if I'm sitting in that movie theater or that restaurant and someone comes in wanting to shoot the place up? There's a saying that I forget who coined this saying, but I really like it. The body will never go where the mind has never been. So you think about it, you practice it, and then it's smooth. It's just all about reaction. You don't have to think, what am I going to do? How am my sweatshirt's in the way? How am I going to draw my gun? I got my obviously from talking, you can tell I've thought about this a little bit. What am I going to do with the baby carrier in my hand? What am I going to do if I'm holding the hand of my 3-year-old? What am I going to do if there's groceries in my arms? What am I going to do in that movie theater? I've thought about it, and hopefully, if I ever have to act on it, I'm ahead of the game.
We've got more coming up with Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense in just a minute, couple of minutes, but he's going to also give you his contact information. Still have a lot of people out there who'd like to learn the ropes, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, uh, well, east of the Mississippi, that's all you need to know. There's a governor of a state that's become much more liberal over the years who's talking about some firearms restrictions. We'll also be talking about that coming up in a short while, plus your telephone calls, too, on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Todd Eccles, our guest in studio from Patriot Defense. We're talking firearms today. We do that on Friday morning. We also take some of your telephone calls at 736-0300, 736-0300. Bill Cawley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. So a guy came by yesterday and he stretched a tape measure around my neck, my chest, my stomach, my waist. And he'd done this before I started taking part in the Total Body Transformation System.
Hopefully, you knew him.
Yes, and he's a pro when it comes to measuring people, because he used to run a tuxedo shop here in town, Don Chandler, and Don got me involved with this diet. And Don himself had been a customer and lost over 50 pounds, and I am now on my way to 80. But my neck size is down the circumference 4 inches.
Nice.
My stomach circumference is down 10 inches, for instance. I mean, these were numbers that I had no, well, certain clothes, you put them on and you realize they don't fit the same way any longer. And I've been telling people out there, it's not a yo-yo diet. It's scientifically proven to work. You'll burn 6 times more fat and lose 8 times more weight than normal results from diet and exercise alone. The meal replacement plan, often healthier than the meals that you're replacing, also costs about the same as the meals that you're replacing. You get a healthy amount of calories. Now, the average participant will lose 4 inches off their waist in just 60 days and 22 pounds in that period. And I also wanted to point out as well, Don is available. The telephone number again, 208 731 3560. That's 731 3560. Now, Todd, of course, lost well over 60 pounds in the last couple of years. And you also probably discovered that putting that holster on is a lot easier now,
Yeah,
too.
I was just gonna say, I rewarded myself with a nice holster and a new gun. My goal, everyone's got their own goals. My little reward was I wanted to be able to appendix carry, and you can't do that if you got a good spare tire because then your gun sticks straight out. Okay, so I'm able to appendix carry now if I want to. Some people frown on that kind of carry, but it works for me, and I enjoy it. I feel better. I feel like if I was ever in some kind of self defense confrontation, that 30 seconds into it, I'm not going to be winded and trying to suck air. And I feel like if I had to run across a parking lot, if I had to do this, I had to do that, I'm better able to do so. I just feel a lot better.
We wanted to point out if you have an interest in taking one of Todd's courses, and two of them are coming up.
Yeah, I've got two. I've got one on April 8th and one on April 22nd. I still have room in the April 8th one. It is filling up pretty quick. I expect to probably start getting a lot more calls and interest in the one on the 22nd. So there's still quite a bit of room left on that. If you want to get a hold of me or you have any questions, you can call me. You can text me at area code 620-794-6223. You can find me on Facebook. That's usually I've got two phones here in front of me. Bill can attest to it. I'm really accessible on Facebook. Shoot me a message, comment, like the page. If you get tired of the radio show or you're not tired of the radio show, if you like the radio show but you want more, you can find me. I
Trust
actually
me, I even get tired of it from time to time.
I do some I worded that wrong. So I've got a podcast that I try to put out every week. I think I got about 6 episodes up, so I'm still relatively new at it. They're usually 20, 30 minutes long. You can find those under it's called the Patriot Defense Podcast. I'm on iTunes, I'm on SoundCloud. I'm getting real close to getting that app out as well, but I also post links to those on my Facebook page. So check it out, share it with your friends.
What's that number again for people who are looking for a pen or pencil still?
Oh, sure. Area code 620-794-6223.
That's because for a few years, Todd was a Jayhawk. And then when he came back from Kansas, he realized if you change the phone number, then you can tell everybody, and oh yeah, okay, but they don't. 6 months later, they're like, "How come I can't get in touch with you?" So you keep the old phone
Hey,
number.
I keep even though I lived in Kansas, I'm not a big sports guy, and I barely know what a Jayhawk is, I do know what it is.
I actually have. Speaking of apps, because you were talking about apps a minute ago, I liked the look of the Jayhawk app, so I literally have one.
I better make my app pretty then, so Bill will download it.
Well, it's such a cool logo. You can see it here. It's the bird over here on the right-hand side,
Oh yeah.
the Jayhawk,
Yep.
the cartoon Jayhawk associated with the university. And I just threw it up there because sometimes I have needs during the course of the program to talk about various issues that are going on with these schools. So I have about 50 of those university apps on my phone
Oh wow.
um,
All I
for that reason.
all I know about Jayhawks is Rock Chalk Jayhawk. That's all I know. My brother, if he's listening, is just rolling his eyes and shaking his head. We're opposite.
Kansas, though, is a lot like most of it, like Idaho, in the sense that people there have the same values, and firearms use obviously is probably about the same there too. I don't imagine Kansas has a lot of restrictions.
They don't. They have. I don't know where it is now. I kind of haven't followed Kansas. I don't live there anymore, so I don't follow it as closely as I used to. Even right after I moved back to Idaho, I'd still follow it, but kind of drifted away. But they had some really cool stuff go on when I was there, to where you could actually carry. They passed a bill that you could actually carry on college campus. You could carry in city buildings, county buildings, if they didn't want you to carry there, then they had to outfit each entrance and exit with a metal detector, and they had to install security guards for your safety. If they were going to take your firearm from you, you had to be safe, and they had to have a place for you to check your firearm before you entered the building. And that was on in every building on the campus and every city building and every county building. And that was what they did is they were going to force them to do that, knowing that they couldn't afford to do it. So if they didn't do it, you could just carry.
We wanted to point out we've got a break coming up in about 20 seconds. So, getting some callers now. Callers, break is about 3 minutes long. If you're patient, we'll get to your telephone calls in the next half hour. We do want to point out we're talking firearms this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. The show is Top Story. And do want to point out, too, as well, that telephone number here, 736-0300, 736-0300. Our guest is Todd Eccles, joining us from Patriot Defense this morning. We do this on Friday mornings. We talk firearms. It's 34 right now. It's 9:34 as well. Bill Colley with you, too, on Top Story. And if you're listening to the program this morning, thanks for tuning in. I also wanted to mention our friends at Mount Harrison Audiology in Rupert. If you're struggling with your hearing, you've got to get in touch with Dr. Christine Pickup. A lot of people say, well, why would I get in touch with Dr. Pickup's office? Because I can always go down to the very big Medical Corporation of Idaho. Well, let's tell you why. Independence. Mount Harrison Audiology is the only independent, locally owned hearing healthcare practice in southern Idaho. That means more choices for treatment than just one brand and lower cost. Trust your hearing to a certified audiologist. She's been doing this for nearly 20 years. That means more choices for treatment, of course. Call Mount Harrison Audiology for your appointment today, 312-0957. That number again, 312-0957. Todd, we've got a caller. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air.
Good morning, gentlemen. I got a statement for Todd and then a question for you, Bill. Todd, I just want to thank you because I try to buy and patronize people that sponsor this show.
We were just talking about that during the break.
and I have had problems with other sponsors not answering their text messages or anything else when they said they would. And I've bought a concealed carry permit for Christmas through my text messages, and you answered them.
Okay,
I got them.
Great.
And I've set up a whole family for the 22nd of April.
Yeah, okay. I know who this is.
And you answered that and promptly, and we got it taken care of. So I want everybody to know that you do answer your text messages and you are prompt.
I appreciate that.
Bill, I go shooting about once a month with my friend, and we shoot anywhere from, I'd say the lowest is probably 100 rounds to 300 rounds on a weekend. If you ever want to go, I'd be more than willing to invite you to come to the Jerome Gun Club and go shooting with us.
And I've been invited out a few times, and it's still on my to-do list. And I also wanted to point out I may be able to see you on the 22nd. So
awesome.
Good possibility.
All right.
We look forward to a reunion.
We'll see you there. All right. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks for the telephone call. Well, the point of the matter is, as he points out, when you're shooting up to 300 rounds, if you do that often enough, you're going to just get to the point where you're very, very proficient. And if you're shooting 300 rounds, you're generally very careful about it, though, too.
Well, yeah, you have to be. Anytime you're shooting a firearm, obviously you need to be very careful and practice the safety rules. If you're going out and shooting 300 rounds a month, that's what he's saying, that's fantastic. That's way more than the average person shoots. You're going to get good, especially if you're using your carry gun. You're going to instill those safety issues in you. You're going to take care of any flinching issues. You're going to be able to stand there and shoot your gun. You're going to get to know your gun, understand it. You're not even really going to have to think about it. It's going to be smooth. It's going to get ingrained into your muscle memory. And we're kind of backing up just a little bit here, but he did say, he appreciated me getting right back to him. I do want to point out, though, that, I do go out and I shop in this town and I deal with other people in this town as well. And I'm all about getting right back to people. That's my biggest, you can ask my wife. I get paranoid if for some reason the other day, 2 people called me one day and their calls and their voicemails did not show up on my phone for 2 days. And then all of a sudden they popped up on a Wednesday. And that
sounds like Verizon to me.
Yeah, and it was. And that irritated me. And I apologized profusely to those folks. And they were understanding. But I typically can get back to you right away, at least within the same day, if not a lot sooner than that. I pride myself in that. I believe that's how my business has grown, is because I respond like that. That's why I really focus on text messages, because text messages can be very, very instantaneous.
I used to get that when I first joined Verizon. I would be walking somewhere, and all of a sudden my phone would make a lot of noises all at once, and 3 backed up voicemails would suddenly appear, and some
Yeah,
of those would be 2 days old.
and it makes me look like a fool. And I don't like that, and it irritates me. And I those people they probably won't call in, and they may or may not be listening, but they can vouch for it. The voicemail I left them was really long, and it was, "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Get a hold of me right now. I can take care of this." I felt really bad, but I pride myself, at least by the end of the day. I don't like to call anyone past 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I go to bed early. I'm getting old, and so I don't like to interrupt people's family time. So I try to get everything answered in the same day. So
And remember where we live. Last summer, I was up in the Sawtooth, and every time I would take a picture with my cell phone, I'd want to text it out, and suddenly realize I couldn't text anything out from where I happened to be. I
well,
had to do some driving to come down off the mountaintop to actually
exactly.
send it.
Exactly, and I do have a day job. Unfortunately, so this Patriot Defense doesn't pay all the bills. My kids do like to eat, so my day jobs, I go into buildings, into plants, into places where I can't have my cell phone, and so but it is in my vehicle, and as soon as I get done, and I grab my phone and I'll answer. So it may be an hour, maybe two, but I will get back to you, and I am. I try to be as convenient as possible. I try to accommodate everything that I can accommodate.
We've got more coming up with Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense in just a couple of minutes, as well as some news about a state. We were talking about how good Kansas is when it comes to gun rights. Well, unfortunately, that's not common across the country. We'll share with you a horror story coming out of one East Coast state in just a few minutes. Ooh, ominous language. Theme song to Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, who I was telling Todd is a former relative of mine. Well, I was not a fan of divorce until I got mixed up in that. Um, wasn't my idea anyway, but Terry McAuliffe, who is the governor of Virginia, used to be just a small time grifter from Syracuse, New York. And when I was a young man and I got married, and about 6 months later, my wife's sister got married to a very nice fellow who happened to be Terry McAuliffe's first cousin. And I used to see McAuliffe at a lot of family events. And I used to joke with people, he's one of those guys, he walks up and he's talking to you, and he's trying to put a con over on you, and he actually thinks that you don't recognize that he's trying to put the con over on you. Like a lot of psychopaths, sociopaths, they're like that. And so they don't think that you recognize what they're up to. And then he got involved with the Clinton crime family and became a fundraiser, and then was appointed the Democrat committee chairman on the national level, used that, leapfrogged into a governor's office in Virginia, and now he says he'd like to limit people to produce. If you want to buy a firearm, you can only buy one in the course of a month. I do want to point out 944 on Top Story. Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense in studio with us. Bill Colley with you as well on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 37. And I sent you a copy of that story this morning.
Yeah.
And he somehow believes if you are limited, you can still buy 12 a year, but you got to do one a month. But if you limit people's purchases, that somehow will reduce crime.
Yeah, because bad guys go in and they go ahead and buy these guns. They try to buy these guns over the counter. They never steal them. They never get them in back alleys. They never get them off of Craigslist. Nothing like that ever happens. And if they do go ahead and steal them, we know they're only going to steal one because, of course, the law says you can only have one a month, right?
Right. Yeah. And they would not be able to pass the background check to buy one legitimately anyway.
Right. So this has just got ridiculous written all over it, to be honest with you.
But it gets the governor's name in the newspaper. He gets a lot of publicity. His fellow travelers pat him on the back. That way, if he has further political ambitions, he can try to exercise those. That's what I think this is all about.
Well, that and like we mentioned before off air, or like I mentioned before off air, sometimes I feel like they throw these little ones at you, knowing that they may not stick, but they're going to keep coming at you and at you and at you. So pretty soon you get tired of it, you kind of overlook it, and all of a sudden they're going to get one in there that will stick, a one that's a little more important, one that's a little more damning to us as gun people.
I can remember a school teacher of mine. He was a very nice man. He was telling us a story when I was in the 8th grade, and he told us, he said, criminals in this country used to have a pride and skill. They would try to pick a lock and get into a building. He said, now they just smash and grab. And that's how they do it when it comes to firearms. They're not walking into it. First of all, if you're going to go, you want a firearm to try to rob a bank or to kill a gang rival, you don't go into the local gun shop and say, "Well, tell you what, I may need 2 guns to rob the bank, so please sell me 2 this month."
One for my right hand, one for my left hand.
Right? It doesn't work that way. And again, it's just, I think part of this too, Todd, is that a lot of folks out there. You mentioned people have taken your course before, that they'd been anti-gun until they actually took the course and they understood how this works. A lot of these people have never had anyone kick down a back door. They don't know what that experience is like, or they've not been threatened down the street or in a parking lot. They don't know anything about the culture that exists. They assume that everybody who owns a firearm is dangerous or bad.
Well, exactly, and I've seen it in my class. I'm the instructor, but if you go and you go shooting at a range anywhere, go shooting at the gravel pits, and there's other people there, or someone knows you're new, or you're having trouble with something. Gun enthusiasts, got people that support the Second Amendment are typically great people. It's a great group of people to be around. They will offer to help. They're nice. I can go out to the gravel pit on any given day, and they're out there with their family, with their kids, with their wives, with their husbands, whatever, out there shooting. We're good people. We're not all bloodthirsty. We're not all looking to use our firearms. We're just looking to defend ourselves. And those people that don't go out and shoot, maybe they are scared of them, or it's been ingrained there from places like Maryland or other places like that, ingrained that guns are evil. And then they think, well, I'm in Idaho now. I want to try this out. And 25 rounds into it, more often than not, they'll turn and they'll look at me. And this has been done, and they'll say, "I understand why you guys like this. This is fun. This is fun as long as you're doing it in a safe manner." And they look at me and they'll say, "This is nothing like what the media has told me that it's like. This is nothing that my parents told me it was like. This is fun, and you can be safe and you can be responsible with it and have a good and enjoyable time."
There is this view that somehow one size fits all, and you hear it from these East Coast politicians like De Blasio and McAuliffe and the like. And Richmond, Virginia is a very dangerous city. That may be, though, more related to the policies of people like him. And New York City is nowhere near as dangerous as it used to be, but that was because Rudolph Giuliani cleaned it up. You can question how he did it, but he cleaned it up. But they seem to believe that if you're living in Buell, Idaho, that you need to be following, because Buell is nothing like Richmond or New York City or Philadelphia.
Thankfully, no.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Spot on there.
Yeah. Evil can happen anywhere. Evil can rear its ugly head anywhere. And where we're more of in a rural type setting, I mean, we have to take care of ourselves. You can't have law enforcement's not going to be there in just seconds. Now they'll get there pretty darn quick. For example, I don't even know if this hit the news yet today, but I was driving to work this morning. I get up really early. I drove by a house. The back part of the house was engulfed in flames, or the back corner. No one had stopped, so I stopped and made sure, be on the door and call 911. Law enforcement was there within probably six minutes. That's pretty dang quick. But if someone is in your house with a firearm, a lot can go down in 6 or 7 minutes. A lot can happen. It doesn't take long to pull that trigger. You need to be able to protect yourself. So you have to protect yourself. You got to take the correct steps in order to do so. And learning, getting knowledge on how to use the firearm, knowing the laws. That's a good thing. That's what you want to do. You want to be able to do this correctly.
Just by the way, we referenced Buell, which of course you live there.
I like Buell.
You know how quiet and peaceful it is. Just a quick public service announcement. At 5 o'clock this afternoon, there is a fish fry that begins at Immaculate Conception Church. Benito and I have been arguing over where we can find the best fish fry in the area. So we discovered that there's been one going on there for several weeks, and this will head up until Easter. So I've just had the taste for the fish fry.
I've got my own church dinner that I have to go to, or I'd maybe go hit that up.
What are you having at church for dinner?
The women are putting on some kind of dinner. I don't know what it is. My wife said we got to go to dinner.
Now, tell people what time and where.
I don't even know. I'm just gonna make sure. I'm gonna make sure I'm home at a certain time. And when the wife, we don't do this very much, but when she says, "Hey, you need to be home," then I follow. I think I have to go early and help set up chairs or tables or something. I'm not sure.
You know what? There's an old phrase that I think it came out of Italy, and it's like "happy wife, happy life."
Exactly. You know what? It's kind of just brought up something. I talked about setting up chairs. Funny story. Well, kind of end toward on a funny story, I guess. When I first started carrying a handgun, I carry in a holster, and I carry at about 3 o'clock, about 3:30 on my waist. Okay, and the gun, it does print a little bit. It does stick out a little bit. Beware if you're new. Anyone who's carrying, just beware, but especially if you're new. You sit down in a chair that's got a back on it, and you lean back and you go to get up. Sometimes that gun will hook on that chair. And when you stand up, you're carrying the chair with you. So you got to be real careful. People are gonna laugh, but it's kind of a learning process. So you always have to learn not to sit all the way back at them when you get up to be careful.
Now that also gets us back to how you carry, though, because
Yeah.
um, for you mentioned earlier you want to do appendix carry.
Hmm.
For different people, this is also part of that. You have to have a comfort level. If you're left-handed, you're going to obviously want a holster on that side. If you're
Yes.
right-handed, but if you're driving, um, we had a guest on a few weeks ago, and she mentioned that she kept the pistol on the console and between the seats because it could be picked up quickly. But if you're driving and you're wearing a seatbelt, then it's over your holster.
Depending on where you carry it is hard. Yeah. If you decide you want to do appendix carry, that's a pretty quick way to draw your handgun when you're seatbelted in a car. But if you carry it 3 o'clock, that's right where the seatbelt hooks. So if you want to put it in your console, that's fine. I've actually heard of people that will take holsters. They actually make car holsters. They will attach to your console. That you can stick your firearm in. So that it's not sitting on the dash, it's not sitting on the seat. So if you get in a wreck or you swerve or you have to hit the brakes, your gun doesn't go flying across the car.
Like your groceries do.
Yeah, or your kids.
Yeah, even worse. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's lots of different ways to do it. I mean, if anyone has any questions about holsters, about how to carry, about where to carry in a car, I mean, hit me up. You can call me or text me, area code 620-794-6223. Find my Facebook page under Patriot Defense. Send me a message. You can call into the show. Um, if you guys want me to talk about something, you can also message me on Facebook, shoot me a text. I'll talk about anything on my podcast. I have no problem doing that. I'm working on getting a few guests on there. They're waiting for me to call. We'll get those podcasts up and rolling, and it'll be a good time. Hopefully, get a little more. I got a bunch of interviews set up. I just got to get them done.
And we need to bring someone in some week too as well who can talk to us about holsters because obviously the other part of this is it's not always just where you're carrying that holster, but it's also what type of holster, what's comfortable for you.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, I would like to at least have a strap. I would have to pop it off. I know that slows you down, perhaps,
Retention strap. Yeah.
but a lot of people out there, again, it's a decision they make, and for quickness and availability, they don't want it.
And there's so many different types of holsters: Kydex leather combo, Kydex neoprene combo. There's retention holsters like you're talking. There's holsters that actually the gun will lock into place. There's so many different kinds of holsters. They have holsters made for your pocket if you have a small enough firearm that you can stick the holster in your pocket, and it's kind of a sticky, so you can actually, when you draw the firearm from your pocket, the holster stays behind. There's all different kinds of holsters. So if you're a gun person, if you're going to conceal carry, trust me, you will end up with a drawer full of holsters.
Now, the Canadian Mounted Police used to have a holster that completely encased, their sidearms.
I used to have a gun that had a holster like that, and oh, I forget where it was made. It was over in Europe somewhere, and it had a big flap and it was kind of a neat looking old holster. But yeah, I've seen those.
I have a pair of binoculars, and I can wear it on my belt,
Uh huh.
and it's similar to that. And you put the binoculars in that case, and I've had people mistake that for the holster.
Well, they make holsters that are a little box kind of essentially that mount on your belt and you drop your gun in. I think it's called a Sneaky Pete. They have all different kinds of holsters. You'd be amazed, and some are good, and some are really good, and some are bad. Some are really really bad.
I
And
had someone actually bring this up with the binoculars one time in a chain restaurant I was visiting where they served pizza. And I remember this is 20 years ago, but somebody thought that I was literally carrying a gun in the restaurant and they got all upset about it. And so I didn't say no, but I popped it open and that made him even more nervous. And I pulled out the
you
binoculars
were
and
just out bird watching.
I just pulled out my binoculars. And with that, all of a sudden, oh, okay.
Settle them all down.
But we have to point that out. It comes back to, as we talked earlier, not just about practice when you're training, but about that what makes you comfortable.
Yeah, whatever makes you. I mean, you need to practice so you are comfortable, but you're gonna do whatever makes you comfortable. Carry where you're comfortable, and carry how and carry what makes you comfortable. The thing is if you carry with it with a manual safety and you keep the manual safety on, that is fine. I really don't want to encourage anyone to carry without a round chambered, but if that's the way you're gonna do it, it is what it is. You just need to train. You need to practice. You need to practice drawing that gun, chambering around, drawing that gun, clicking off the safety. If you carry on your ankle, you need to practice drawing from your ankle and getting a shot on the target quickly and efficiently. If you carry in a bag, you need to train that way. Learn how to get, out of your purse or your bag. When I carry with my purse, I have to figure out how to get the gun out of there. You just got to do it and know how to do it efficiently. You train how you carry and train with what you carry. Find the limitations and figure out how to overcome them. That may mean going and buying other gear. So you just have to figure that out for yourself.
One of these days we should devote a little bit more time to this. We're down to about a minute, but there are people out there who have a handicap or disability,
Sure.
but there's still means.
Oh yeah.
We there's still opportunities for them to carry as well, and sometimes it just takes an adjustment.
Yeah, and they almost, be honest with you, they almost need the protection. They're more vulnerable than we are. And I've seen guys, and I'm sure they custom make them, but I've seen guys mount holsters on their wheelchairs. I've seen all kinds of stuff. I've seen holsters mounted on walkers. I mean, you name it, I've seen it.
I saw a post last night on Facebook. Where it's called Buy, Sell, and Trade, and somebody was selling an old walker, and it said "slightly used walker for sale." And I thought, the sad part of that is the person who was probably using it is no longer with us.
It could be,
I'm
yeah.
not necessarily sure I'm comfortable about buying that
That's
walker if
right.
that be the case.
It's got a history.
One more time on your contact information.
Yeah, you can call me, you can text me at area code 620-794-6223. You can find me on Facebook under Patriot Defense. Message me, like the page, comment, whatever, like the page especially. It'll keep you updated on everything. I'll answer any questions. If you want some more listening, you can catch my podcast, Patriot Defense Podcast. I'm on SoundCloud. I'm on iTunes. I also post the links to those on Facebook. I try to get them up every weekend.
We've got another round of this coming up, no pun intended, in another week. I want to thank Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense for joining us. Rush Limbaugh is coming up next following the news at 10 o'clock from Fox. And God willing, the creek don't rise. I'll see you all over again on Monday morning between 8 and 10 o'clock. Two quick notes about next week. We're going to have Matt Erpelding join us from the Idaho State Legislature. He's the House Minority Leader. He'll join us Monday to give us sort of the postmortem on the legislative session. And then the Republican response with Clark Kaufman coming up on Tuesday morning right here on KLIX.